All right, welcome back. Lionel is still here. He's my co-host, talk show radio veteran, and a whole litany and long list of other things as well. And we're joined by Larry Klayman, founder of Freedom Watch and a former federal prosecutor. You know, nothing gets a conversation started like a nice, good piece of sound. And this is the sound I referred to in the first block. I didn't want to play it, but we've talked about it, and Clapper gets me irritated, and I'd love to get Larry and Lionel's reaction to this. Play soundbite number 5, guys.
I don't find surprising this development, given this long period at which the special counsel has been at work, and I also read into it when Bob Mueller hired more staff that there is there, but I can't say anything more than that. But it is not a surprising development.
And then I'll get Larry's reaction. It's important to remember here that Mr. Clapper is not a fan of Mr. Trump's, and he would happily go to Antarctic to be on a radio show to tell you how much he doesn't like him. But now that we've had an editorial from me, Larry, what's your reaction to Mr. Clapper and his conviction that there is a there?
Guys, it's another bad case of the Clapper, I have to say.
Oh, but
we have a situation here where this guy lied under oath to Congress, saying that there was no mass surveillance, even lied to a Democrat senator from Oregon in that regard. He then has been disclosed to have involved in a mass surveillance scheme. Our client, Dennis Montgomery, that we've talked about before, was working with him, and they were unmasking and surveilling virtually everyone, including President Trump, judges, Supreme Court justices, yours truly. Now we know that he was involved in massive unmasking just in the last few weeks, thanks to revelations by Circa News. And this guy is bad news. He's an Obama deep state appointee. He'll say anything. His eyes shift faster than Howdy Doody when asked to tell the truth. And frankly, I've got him as a defendant in a lawsuit that we brought. You can see it at freedomwatchusa.org. I've asked the court to allow me to depose him, John Brennan, former director of the CIA, James Comey, and others, because they surveyed us. They surveyed Mr. Montgomery and I by breaking into our cell phones, our internet. There's no bounds here. This guy is the worst of the worst.
Larry,
and really a disgrace.
Larry, when was the last time you can recall anybody ever being charged with either contempt of Congress or perjury for statements as perjurious as that? In your recollection, does any event come to mind?
No, we never hold, Lionel, great question. We never hold the higher-ups accountable in this country. We burn the middle-level people, the lower-level people. We get their scalps. The special counsel say, okay, I did my job. We spent $40 million. We indicted individuals in the Valerie Plame case. We indicted people in Iran-Contra, but you never get the hires up because between the two parties, the Democrats and Republicans, there's an unwritten pledge that we're not going to hold your leaders accountable. And now we know this week that Clapper and others were involved in unmasking members of Congress. Now they're scared. That's why they won't talk to Montgomery, because if they start investigating the intel agencies, stuff is going to fly out of the files concerning their private lives and their professional lives, and they'll be ruined. It's mutual assured destruction on Capitol Hill and with these intel agencies.
Yeah, I want to get to the Iran-Contra thing, because you wrote a piece about that, and that's an interesting. There's a little interesting nexus that I want to get to. But before I do that, you know, GOP Congressman Trent Franks a little earlier this week said he thought Robert Mueller should resign from the Russian investigation. This is what he had to say, and then let's talk about this.
I suppose that, you know, the statute, if you put it up on the screen sometime, I think that would make it really clear to people. But it essentially says that anyone who has a personal relationship with someone that is involved in the conduct that's being investigated, and certainly one of the main investigations taking place was a conversation between Mr. Comey and the president. And Mr. Comey and Mr. Mueller are very good friends, and the more you look at it, the closer that friendship appears to be. And consequently, I just don't see how Mr. Mueller can be an unbiased arbiter between those two perspectives.
It's interesting. Obviously, he made that comment to Neil Cavuto over on Fox News. And Larry, Lionel, I'm going to start with you. I have looked at that statute. What is interesting about that statute is there is no requirement that you recuse yourself. There's basically, yes, there can be this conflict of interest, and it defines that conflict of interest as he represents it. But it goes on to say you don't have any obligation to recuse yourself. It's a weird little thing.
It's like sometimes Larry will know there are requirements, for example, in bar associations that say this is not mandatory, it's aspirational. Certain things are aspiration. But what interests me is that you always hear this notion that Bob Mueller is a straight shooter. Bob Mueller is a straight shooter, and nobody is a straighter shooter than him, a man of incredible integrity, a man who was in the not the end of his career, but certainly not some 38-year-old tyro. Yeah. Why would he do anything right now when he knows this is what's going to be advanced? Why not just say, out of an abundance of caution, and to avoid the mere appearance of impropriety, an admonition I'm sure Larry knows, I'm going to step aside because I think justice warrants that. Is that too much to ask, Larry, do you think?
Not too much to ask, but there's never been a conflict of interest in recent history in Washington, D.C. And when someone is called a man of integrity, I say, look out.
Right.
Because everybody's a man of integrity as part of the establishment. And Mueller, I know from personal experience, through Dennis Montgomery again, was involved in illegal mass surveillance in violation of the Fourth Amendment. Mueller tried to drum out of the FBI 2 special agents I've represented who went forward with information about Saudi money laundering that led to 9/11. And because they were close to the Saudi royal family and the Bush family, Bush was then President W, and his dad former president, it was suppressed by Mueller at the FBI, and they tried to drum the agents out because they were trying to tell the truth to the American people. This guy is not a man of integrity. And now this week, I wrote a column on Newsmax, my blog, Klayman's Court. He's hired his 16th lawyer. You don't need 16 lawyers, much less Clinton loyalists, to investigate crimes unless you have already decided to bring indictments. And this is over lawyering. It's costing the taxpayer millions and millions of dollars. These guys are lackeys. They're going to do what Mueller, in a situation, this was the subject of my column, similar to Iran-Contra, where the independent counsel, the precursor to the special counsel, was used to try to destroy President Reagan and the people around him. So there's a lot of reasons to get rid of Mueller, and it's time for Attorney General Sessions to step up to the plate, do his job, and have this guy fired, and appoint somebody inside the Justice Department who is not a political appointee, but who is loyal to the truth, to justice, handle an investigation. That should have been done from the start.
Larry, one of the problems was we were talking about this perhaps during the break or not, is that when you involve something called target prosecution, nothing screams louder, nothing is more unfair, nothing is more unconstitutional than the idea of going after somebody to find something versus investigating somebody who is a target or a subject where you have information to believe that something perhaps occurred and you're going to investigate it versus let's go after this guy and let's find something. And believe me, there is not a human being on this planet who has not done something in violation of Title 18 if you want to stretch the truth.
If you really want to go after them. But this situation has gotten more complicated, guys, because while there has been this discussion about whether President Trump should or shouldn't fire Mueller, whether Mueller should not be dismissed, perhaps even by Attorney General Sessions, we now have Congress getting involved, entertaining pieces of legislation that would say, no, he cannot be fired. That's not going to happen, Lionel. We're going to step in, and I don't know what they're going to protect. The integrity of the process, the appearance of an interference by a president.
I know. This is the same Congress, by the way, who passes a law involving sanctions against Russia that tells the president he can't exercise his position, his Article 2 jurisdiction, regarding dealing with foreign. I mean, I've never heard about this. It's like a signing statement in reverse where they're limiting the president's power that he signs. And why is he signing this in the first place? I didn't see the gun to his head. Perhaps that's a different subject matter. But I've never seen I've seen draconian legislation, but these statutes, these bills, these edicts that they provide that limit and shackle the hands of the president, unprecedented.
I know, Larry. I know that Congress wants to have a say in things. I understand that, and they're an important part of the government. But it does seem like they're overreaching. I felt they overreached in the Russian case, and it feels to me like when it comes to Mueller, that once again, I'm not quite. I guess they're playing to an audience back home. It doesn't seem to make sense.
They're doing the same thing that Attorney General Sessions is doing. They're protecting their own interests before the interests of we the people. And they're worried about their electoral chances. They're worried about appearances. The Republican establishment, of course, the Democrats, would like to see Trump gone, and they'd like to see him neutered, in effect, neuter the elephant, and let them carry on with their establishment agenda, which, of course, we know is simple failure in doing nothing. So, but Trump threatens their money chain. Trump threatens their power in Washington. They don't like that. He's an outsider. He's going to drain the swamp. Lionel from Florida, we know what swamps are about. And they hate him. And that's the reality. And look at McCain. I mean, I feel sorry that he's got a brain tumor, but he absolutely hates Trump. And people like McCain are doing everything they can to destroy this presidency.
No, they really are. Now, let's get back to this piece that you wrote, commonalities in Mueller and the Iran-Contra case. The title alone kind of piques my interest. Where do you see any commonality at all?
Well, the commonality is that both were basic witch hunts, okay? But the commonality was also the over-lawyering in that case. Now, a good friend of mine, a law school classmate, brilliant criminal defense lawyer, Craig Gillen, was the person who executed what Lawrence Walsh, who was the prosecutor, wanted. Craig's a good guy. He's actually a conservative. But he had to do what Walsh said. And Walsh was out to get Reagan. And they had to find somebody to indict. So they found Caspar Weinberger, who got pardoned right after Bush won the presidency. But the hard part of this is that these special counsels, they have to justify the expense that they put in. And therefore, there's a commonality here, because the people who are likely most at risk here with regard to Mueller is not the president of the United States. There's an unwritten law in this country. You don't hold the president accountable under criminal law. They will in Israel. Netanyahu may be indicted shortly over there, but not in this country. So they're going to burn the Roger Stones. They're going to burn the Paul Manaforts. They're going to burn General Flynn. They're going to burn perhaps Jared Kushner and others, perhaps, because they're going to have to find scalps. And that doesn't mean that they shouldn't, but these are the people in the line of fire. These are the people who will probably risk going through this Mueller investigation, and some others.
All right, guys, I'm out of time. Unfortunately, this is way too much fun. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, Larry. Have a great weekend. Quick question of the viewers. What issue is more important, the Russian collusion probe or the leaks from the White House? Send us your thoughts. Tweet us at Newsmax Now or email us at newsmaxnow@newsmaxtv.com. Larry, great to have you on. Carol Roth is coming up next to talk about the increase in jobs, tax reform, and a whole lot more. We'll be right back.